In terms of location, which I think is maybe a bit different than place, there are a couple of different landscapes that permeate my poems. One is the coastal Maine landscape, the down east landscape in particular, pretty rocky, bare, not very densely populated with humans. And the other is the central Illinois landscape. I usually don't read with mics, but this is sort of like a theater. So I'm going to try, because I usually move all over. Okay. Riptide. This is a poem that it's an older poem of mine, but it's still a favorite, so I'm going to start with this. Riptide. Straight south from rocky beach, waves furl silk sheets into the whirl of current where river tugs against the suck of sea. A glinting swarm of knives, the only praise or protest we can read. Scrolls of rose-pink plankton, slick-backed smelts, black-finned mackerel and flower beds of kelp, held in communion by the moon's intangible script, now ripped and writhing in the surface, barely filtered glare, where, spray-drenched and dreamlike, loom the margins of this universe. Salt, round, bare, the islands quilled with spruce and larch, flanking the seaward route, while west, the wide, slow band of mainland bends around to one white steeple, poised above the town. Already, I've begun to mourn the way perspective rights itself. The body shifts quick as wind towards what's ahead, while where we've been sloughs off like an abandoned shell. Its hollow core too heavy to withstand the undertow, tossed ashore, clean as bone, something I might bend to touch, take home. Detour, Central Illinois. Train tracks push back, block storefronts, windows, lake-faced glass. Trees shorn of leaves, dull bands of grass. Even the main drag lifts and opens like a hand without fingers. This next poem is called Cherries. There's an epigraph to the poem by Mae Swenson, a favorite poet of mine. And there's also a reference in the first part of the poem to a man named Andrew Jackson Downing. He was a botanist in the mid-1800s, and he wrote a book called The Fruits and Fruit Trees of America, in which he writes the following, and to which I allude. Transplanted into a warmer aspect, stimulated by a richer soil, reared from selected seeds, carefully pruned, sheltered, and watered by slow degrees, the sour and bitter crab expands into golden pippin. The wild pear loses its thorns and becomes a bergamot or burr. It is thus only in the face of obstacles, in a climate where nature is not prodigal of perfections, and in the midst of thorns and aloes, that man, the gardener, arises and forces nature to yield to his art. Cherries. My hands are murder red. Sour, self-fertile, less prone to illness than the wild and sweet from which they were grafted near the Caspian Sea. A pithy glitch in Downing's tongue-plump praise of golden pippin, bergamot, or burr. Willed heirs to bitter crab and thorny pear, a story of seduction too tempting to resist. A crop this thick begs for plunder. Ripeness wants to be ravaged. You sip as if it's wine, though I taste blood, that clotted cake of nutrients and waste you had the midwife wrap fresh from my womb. Bay leaf, a squeeze of garlic, one recipe suggested prunes. Now charred by freezer burn beneath discarded kidneys, rough-skinned tongues, handoffs you've saved, arranged like cornerstones to balance trays of pitted fruit bound tight for easy access once the seasons turned. My garden is an honest place, wrote Emerson, who prized the quince for its austerity. Tart flesh that transforms easily to bitter sweet when subject to the company of stewed apples or pears. And yet, to grow, even to make, is not the same as to create. If they bleed, too soft, let them stay. Let them rot in the heat. June, stalled by an early bloom, you revel in the blaze as if you'd spent this crop of nights picking the blues like tender fruit from your guitar. Beginner's fingers bruise, you've said, but I see stony callus turn to sponge by acid juice. Cool tongue savors the sticky chafe, the taste of wasted blood, if I could touch the wound.